Welcome to Money, Manifestation, and Business, the podcast that shows you how to use your energy, intention, and consciousness to reprogram your money mindset, unleash a new level of possibility, and create a life and business that lights you up. I'm your host, Jamie Berman, and I invite you to join me each week for a dose of inspiration, coaching, and teachings to help you rewrite your money story, create abundance on your terms, and grow your business in a way that's fully aligned for you. This is going to be so much fun. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I have a super special guest for you today. You're going to love this episode. If you're someone who involves any piece of selling in your business, which I would say is probably all of you, because we have a guest and expert that I've been wanting to have on the podcast for a while, and we finally worked it out. So I have Megan Smyth here, who is a former pre-med student turned sales coach and strategist. And she's on a mission to take the sleaze out of selling and help women entrepreneurs find ethical sales strategies that work for them, meaning no pushy tactics, paid ads, or social media required. Okay, so excited to talk about this. She's a firm believer that the world needs more wealthy women. Megan empowers her clients to grow both their income and their impact. And her unique background in neuroscience has helped clients double their revenue, triple conversion rates, and stay booked out months in advance, even after raising their prices. So welcome, Megan. So excited to have you. And I can't wait to dive into this topic.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, yes. So you went from being a pre-med student and you studied neuroscience and then you became a sales coach. How did that transition happen?
Yeah, I would say a series of happy accidents, right? So I realized about 2 years into my 4-year pre-med degree that I didn't want to be a doctor. There were aspects of it that I absolutely loved. And I really enjoyed, like you mentioned, the neuroscience aspect, understanding how people think. And I loved my anatomy classes, but there were certain aspects that I loved less so. And I knew it just wasn't my one true passion and purpose in life. I could see some of my friends, how they were so all in. And it's a career you really do need to be all in, committed to, because it is your whole life when you work in that field. And so I was like, well, if this isn't it, like, what is it, right? Like, what am I, searching for? So I did the whole soul searching trip to Bali thing. I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand on my summer break when all my friends were writing the MCAT tests. And I was like, I'm going to go for a couple of months and I'm going to figure my life out. And on that trip, I did realize, I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to do something creative that gave me the freedom to keep traveling. And I sort of stumbled onto copywriting by accident. So I actually just applied for a job that I really had no business applying for. I had zero experience. And I reached out to this woman who was actually a business coach helping other women start online businesses. This was like the heyday of the whole laptop lifestyle thing. And I knew I wanted to be doing what she was doing. She was hiring it was a blog writer. It wasn't even like sales copy. It was just content at the time. And I basically reached out to her and said like, hey, I have no experience, no skills and qualifications, but I really think I could do this job. Like, just give me a chance. I will work hard. I will learn. Like, you won't find anyone more dedicated. And at the time I was still juggling, like I was still in school and I had like a side hustle day job going already, and then another side hustle and working medical research. So there was like a lot going on. And I was like, I can do this. And she said yes. She took a chance on me, which I'm so appreciative of. And that sort of kicked off my copywriting business. And that was the first step.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Isn't it wild how things work like that? Like the universe is amazing. How it's like this thing where you're like, I don't know, this random job, I'm in Bali, I'll take it. And then it opens up a whole new world for you. It's so cool.
And I will say I was so close to not applying too.
Really?
And everything would be so different if I had, right? That started it all. And I had just recently, like maybe a week before I saw that job posting, come across something that said, some stat about how men will apply to a job listing if they meet like 40% of the requirements, and women won't apply unless they meet 100%. And that really like ticked me off, and it stayed with me. And so when this job posting just sort of came across my dashboard on the internet, I thought, you know what? Like, why not? We'll just give it a chance. And that one action completely changed my life for sure.
That's amazing. And that's so good to keep in mind. Like, just do it. Just try. Why not? Even if you don't have experience, if you're feeling the nudge, if you're feeling the call, just do it. I know it's wild, those things in our lives that it's like, wow, what if I didn't do that? It's like remembering back, I almost didn't do it. Where would my life be? Right?
Yeah,
like, it's weird.
sure.
It's, with my husband, it's the same thing where like, I canceled our first date because I was like, I don't know if I want to. And like, I'm like, what if we hadn't set up a second date, right? Like our worlds would be so different. So it's amazing. But yeah, I want to hear more about your methodology with sales. And, since that moment of, taking the copywriting job and learning copywriting, and then I imagine starting to understand the process of selling and what works and your own way, I'd love to hear what you learned that you think others need to hear or understand.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many things, so many directions I want to take this. But I'll start by saying, my journey in my copywriting business, it wasn't like smooth sailing. I wasn't one of those people who I started my business and like 6 months in, I made 100K or whatever. That's not my story. My first 6-figure year was like year 3. And the first couple of years were a bit of a grind and a bit of a struggle. And ironically, it turned out I was a really good copywriter, and I was a sales copywriter specifically. And that background in psychology and neuroscience and understanding like what drives people to make decisions really lent itself to me helping my clients with their sales and their marketing. And over time that evolved into me helping like on the strategy side and doing some consulting and their launches and things like that as well. And my clients were getting these amazing results, and I could sell the heck out of their services and their offers and programs, but I was really struggling to sell my own services. And I just thought that was like such an interesting disconnect. Was like, okay, I know I can sell. So why am I struggling so much to do it for myself? And the first couple of years of my business, I just relied entirely on referrals because, like I said, my clients were happy. I was like, I can do the job, but I'm having a hard time selling my ability to do the job. And it took me a long time to figure out why. And so that's the first thing I'd say to people is the first sort of cheat code is that I spent those first couple of years listening to everyone on the internet, right? Soaking in all the advice. You're just like a sponge. Did you see these people who look like they have it all figured out? They're more experienced, more successful. Like I said, had no background. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in this, online business space. I'm new here. So of course I was looking for other people and looking to other people. And when they said I had to do certain things, like show up on social media every day, post consistently, be on stories and show your face and do this, that, and the other, I tried all of the things. And a lot of those things didn't sit right with me. And so I would either do them and I would feel like weird and icky about it, or I wouldn't do them consistently because it just felt terrible. And so I'd end up avoiding it. And so I was kind of stuck in this cycle where I never found what worked for me. And it all came to a head about 2 years into running my business when, through a series of unfortunate events, I ended up losing all of my copywriting clients in 1 week. Like, no joke. Like, there was just it was the most random series of events. Like, people had family emergencies and business breakdowns, all the things. And my revenue dropped down to 0. I had just joined a expensive mastermind that I was now on the line to pay for every month. So my profit was actually in the negative. And I just remember lying on the floor I was in Portugal at the time. I was lying on the floor of my Airbnb with a bottle of Vino Verde. And I was like, well, this is it. It's been a fun ride, but it's over. This is the end of the line. And I realized I can either give up now and go and get a real job. I was like, I can always go back and, apply to be a doctor, I guess. And I was like, maybe that's the easier option. Or I could figure out a way to make this work for me. Because at this point, I'd tried everything that everyone else told me to do, and it hadn't worked. And so I didn't really have anything to lose at that point. I thought, I called it my experiment with my science background. I was like, I'm just going to see what happens. Like, what happens if I stopped following all the shoulds in my business and started following the fun? Like, what do I actually enjoy? And why not? If I've only got another couple months of this, why not have fun on the way out? And it completely changed everything. It wasn't overnight, like I said, but 6 months in, I had the consistent clients back. And by the end of that year, that ended up being my first 6-figure year.
gosh. Oh my gosh, there's so much magic in this story that I want to unpack. It's so good. So the first thing I want to ask about, I want to back up to the part where you were sharing how you could sell for other people or work for other people, but you struggle to sell for yourself. Now, I think that story, I know that story resonates with a lot of people. They feel like, God, I've been successful in my career, or I've even been successful in sales somewhere else, and I can sell the heck out of other people's products or things. But when it comes to selling myself and my services or my products, I struggle. I can't do it. It feels different. It feels icky. It feels sleazy. Would you be open to sharing what shifted for you and, what you would maybe recommend to others who are in that place where they just feel like they can't sell their own stuff? It's very hard for them. They feel there's a block there.
Yeah, it's so common. And it's interesting. I've heard it all now, right? Having worked in sales, like I ask people, like, what are the thoughts that come up? And there's such a wide range of responses. Like you said, it's icky, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to brag. I don't want to pressure people, all these things. And what's so interesting to me is that as a copywriter, I worked with all kinds of different clients before I niched down to working with women entrepreneurs specifically. And I've heard that those type of responses and that resistance around sales from pretty much every woman I've ever worked with. I have never, ever heard any of the men that I work with have that resistance to sales. And so for me, that was actually a little bit of the fuel in the fire, kind of like going back to the job posting and the application it was really hard to do it for me to say, like, I'm going to apply for this job. But when I felt like I was part of the sort of collective, like, well, maybe I can change that statistic, right? Maybe me doing this will, maybe someone listening to this interview will hear that story and she'll feel inspired. In fact, I've shared that story about the initial copywriting job before and had people reach out and tell me that. And that's such an incredible feeling. So it was the same thing with sales, was like, if I can learn to do this and kind of get over this hump myself, maybe I can help other women, right? Rising tide lifts all boats. And that was something I really worked at. And so I think recognizing like it's not your fault. There's very real reasons why we have those feelings and why women do, especially 100%. It's so ingrained into us. And we're so socialized from an early age to be accommodating and put other people first. Don't make people uncomfortable. Nothing makes people more uncomfortable than talking about or asking for money. Nothing makes people more uncomfortable than a woman confidently owning her worth and standing in it. So there's very real reasons. So I think step number one is just acknowledge that. And then step number two is to say, okay, it's not my fault that I'm feeling this way, but it is your responsibility as a business owner that like you can take steps to change that. And we'll talk about how to do that too.
I love that. So good. It's so true. Yeah. It's really, having a why behind it really matters. Like looking, like you said, it's like, oh, well, if I can learn this, I can teach it to others too. And I can kind of pave the way for what I want to see in the world. So I have found that to be for myself too. A big way that I get over humps is really digging deep into why do I want to do it? What's the purpose behind it? And that stretches me to do the uncomfortable, because I imagine it still wasn't super comfortable in the beginning for you, was it? Or what was the process like in the beginning? Yeah.
Absolutely not. And that's part of it too. And one thing I hear from people is they'll say like, I don't have the skill of selling. Like they're like, I am just not a salesperson. I have personality for it. And to which I say, that is a skill you can learn and comes with practice. Like everything in your business and your daily life right now, at one point you didn't know how to do, right? Like at one point you had to, send your first invoice to a client or do your first podcast episode, and things that now feel second nature to you at one point were also new and scary. So it's the same thing with selling. It does come with time and practice. You'll get more comfortable. But like you said, part of it is also just reframing, like, well, what does selling even mean in your own mind? So we could talk about that too. I have a couple sort of frames that I find people do find
let's
helpful.
Talk about it. I love that. Let's dive into it. Yeah. What does selling mean?
Yeah. So the first thing I always like to start with is, what is selling not? So the goal in my mind is not to push, persuade, convince, or otherwise pressure people into buying from you. You should not and cannot really convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. And so if that's your fear, let's just start there. You're not going to accidentally convince someone to buy something they don't need. That's not a thing you need to be worried about. Your job is to help people make an empowered empowered buying decision and the best choice for them. So you're giving them the information they need to do that. And I like the word empowered because one thing that comes up a lot in sales is objections and hesitations. And that's something people hesitate to, they're like, I don't want to push on objections. No, we don't want to push on objections, and we don't want to, pressure anyone, like I said, but you do need to address objections, because objections, as we can talk about, are usually just forms of limiting beliefs people have. And so if you're not addressing them, you are leaving them in that state of disempowerment, right? It's like, oh, I don't have time, I can't afford it, right? Like, let's have those conversations so at the very least they can make a fully empowered and informed decision.
That's so good. Such a good reframe of objections. It's like, yeah. And that one thing that shifted for me when working with that is I just started thinking of it like, if I'm not talking them through it, I'm not actually coaching them. Like working through objections, or if I always think of, they're just like fears that are coming.
They
up.
are,
it's people scared of expansion, which happens, right? Like anytime we're about to expand or move into something where we're growing, our ego's like, no, let's go back in the cave and like come up with our normal excuses. So it really is just like working through that. It's coaching them through that, talking them through that, instead of pressuring them or forcing them. That's not what it is. I love that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And ultimately, we want to get to this place where the buying experience is, I like to think of it as an exchange of enthusiasm. So if you think of like a Venn diagram, there's you on one side and the buyer, the client on the other. And that little overlap is the sort of sweet spot where like you're excited to talk about what you have to offer and they're excited to work with you. Like it's a win-win experience. Everyone feels good. And if you're listening to this, I know you've had positive buying experiences before. Right? We've all had negative ones where we felt uncomfortable, where we were being sold to and it was weird and icky, but hopefully you've also bought something that gave you joy and was a joyful buying experience. So why can't you create that for someone too?
I love that. I think it's really important to look at that too, because it is interesting, right? With that negativity bias where the uncomfortable situations or the icky, sales exchanges are what sometimes stick in our head. So then we therefore make the assumptions, oh, selling is sleazy, selling is icky. But that's not the only one, right? That might be like one in, 100. So
exactly.
I love that, of looking at where the positive experiences have been. So I'd love to talk to the person who already sells, they're making money in their business, they are selling, but they want to get better at it, right? They'd love to improve conversions. They'd like to get even better at selling. Where would you say they should begin if they want to just amp it up and like take their selling to the next level?
Oh, this is such a fun question. Okay, well, the first thing I will say is to always know your numbers. So selling is a huge topic, and some people are going to kind of maybe be alarmed by this, but I do believe you should always be selling in your business. You should not always be closing. I think that's that's crap. That's like outdated, like 90s sales advice there. You should not always be closing. You should not always be pitching your offer. But every interaction that someone has with you, your brand, your business, should be hopefully moving them further along on their buyer's journey. Because in this, attention economy that we all live in, if they're not moving further along, they're gone, right? You've lost them. And so it's not about being salesy all the time, like I said, or pitching or talking about your offers even necessarily, but just continuing to further that relationship, if you will. So in my mind, you should be selling from like that very first interaction in your free content, even if what you're quote unquote selling them on is just like why they should keep listening to you, why they should keep reading your posts. That underlying skill of, knowing how to capture, hold attention, those are all sales skills, right down to, of course, like getting them on a call, closing on the call, continuing that relationship, retention, all of that is a form of selling. And so first and foremost, I would look at like, what does your current sales funnel or system look like? What are the numbers telling you in terms of, where are you potentially losing people on that journey, and where can you shore up your conversions so that you're not just trying to learn sales as a whole? Sales and marketing is a massive topic, but really defining like, what are maybe my weak spots that could use some shoring up, and like, how can I really master that one piece?
Ooh, that's good. I love it. Yes, numbers are good. That's why we want to look at numbers and not be scared of them. And it's so funny because as you're talking, I'm like, we share so many of the same processes, beliefs, and mine happens to be around money and yours is around selling. But it's so interesting how much our journeys are mimicked. I'm like, it's wild. And you're sharing so many of the same kind of thoughts that I have about money in sales. So that's really fun because if you've been listening to this podcast or doing the work around money, think about what if I implemented some of the same things that I've been learning around money towards selling and towards, my beliefs around selling, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, because, if you're an entrepreneur, like money, of course, can come from lots of different places and different sources. But chances are, if you own a business, most of your income is coming through sales in your business. And so it's very reliant, like almost 100% reliant on your ability to sell. There's really no more, an essential skill. Selling is just the skill of making money. And, that's a skill that will serve you no matter how your business changes or evolves. And even outside of your business as well. If you decide you want to, start another company or go on some new venture, that skill is only going to serve you.
Yes, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay. One thing that I want to talk about, because I know people are wondering, because you mentioned, not using paid ads, not, on social all the time, these things that didn't feel good for you. For some people, that's going to feel great. And it's like, go all in, do it. But for people who are like, I really only see people selling through social or through paid advertising, and I feel like I have to be on Instagram or TikTok or wherever all the time, and it just doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with my energy, with what I want to be doing. I'm just wondering, I know that you had mentioned like you followed the fun, but what about for someone who says, well, I don't even see another way, right? Like, what are the other ways of selling? What would you say to them?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And there are really endless opportunities in my mind. And we get so stuck in these boxes of like, well, I have to be on Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or like whatever it is, right? And like, there's no other option. And let me tell you, there's lots of very successful business owners out there who are not on social media, who are not on those specific platforms or using those specific strategies. So there's always a way, right? And I would really question it anytime you have that feeling of I have to be doing it, because even if it turns out to be something that maybe you're good at or do enjoy, there's still kind of that like energetic component of like, it's never going to get as great of results as it could if you're coming from that place of I have to be here versus I'm choosing to. So that's the first thing, is to explore, other options and look at like what type of, so if we're talking about content, for example, like top of funnel marketing, if you were to look at, okay, how can I replace social media? Well, what role does social media play in your business now? Like, what is it doing for you, or what do you want it to be doing for your business? So is it lead generation? Is it pure visibility? Like just getting in front of new people? I think most commonly that's what it is. I would argue it's not the best platform for lead generation, but it can be great for just getting like more eyes on your stuff, right? And getting your business in front of more people. So if that's the case, okay, how else could you do that? How else could you increase your visibility and get in front of new audiences? Obviously, paid ads are one option to do that. So is PR. So is long form evergreen content like a podcast, SEO, YouTube. Like there are so many options. In-person marketing and networking I've seen people have success with, referral partnerships and creating those relationships, or just connecting with people. I hate the term networking, but if you have some sort of strategic approach of like, I'm going to connect with this many new people, it doesn't have to be on social, could be over email, and not cold pitching them as clients, but just creating those connections and opening doors that way. Like there's so many ways to get creative with it. But first and foremost, you have to know like, what's the end goal? What's the purpose here? I personally really love this longer form content, like podcasting, for example, as an alternative to social.
Amazing. So good. There's so many good ideas in there. And I think the question you asked is really powerful, which is like, opening your mind to what could be some other options, what could be some other ways, what are some other ways? And it's like looking for that, right? Because our brain will answer, or our subconscious will answer the questions that we ask. Because sometimes we just have to ask instead of saying, this is the only way, I have to be in this box, right? Like exploring what could be fun, what's different, how are other people selling? Like if I could, another good one would be like, if I couldn't sell through social, let's pretend I couldn't, if that's your block, right? How could I make this business work? right?
And you would find a way. That's the thing, right? You will find the way.
Yeah.
And the answers, personally, I just got to a point where I the thought of showing up on Instagram stories filled me with so much dread that I was like, well, I gotta find an alternative. And I did. And, I'm happy to share, like, for me, that was podcasting. And it was a bit of that quote unquote cold outreach. Like I said, it wasn't really pitching people, but referral partnerships, building those relationships, like all kinds of things that involved zero social.
So amazing. Yay. Example of what's possible. I love it. So I've heard a lot of people sharing. I'll ask one more kind of strategy question, and then I want to get into some of the energetics because I know you're masterful at that too. But I've heard a lot of people sharing like, hey, what's been working doesn't seem to be working right now or anymore. Like they feel like this year there's been a shift. Like, okay, the way that I used to launch or the challenges that I used to do or the process, the funnels that I used to have, literally, they used to be so successful. And all of a sudden, it's like, what happened? So I'm curious, like, for people who are in that place, could you speak to what, number one, how you would hold the pivot and the way of trying something new? And then number two, maybe even more strategically, like, what are you seeing working these days? Or are there trends that you're seeing like, hey, we're trending in this direction. This is what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny. I just recorded an hour-long solo episode on this topic because it's such a big topic, and I've been getting that question. I've been getting that question too, and I've been hearing the same thing, from my audience. So, I mean, the one thing I will start with saying is like, try not to panic. I know it is scary when you see, conversions or sales drop off, but to an extent, this is normal, right? Businesses and, marketplaces go through cycles, and the online business space has really evolved. And so people are saying that the market has become more saturated. It's like noisy, it's busy, it's crowded, and there's more competition. And I don't think that's why the market is more sophisticated, meaning buyers are more educated. They're more aware, and they're also more wary of investing for sure. So I would say the biggest thing to be aware of is this sort of lack of trust that a lot of people are experiencing across all industries. I've heard a really common objection these days is the sort of what I've coined like the been burned before objection, whether, they've invested in a coach or this type of program before and it didn't work out, that person overpromised and under-delivered and all the things. And so, yes, the market has changed. I think the really important thing to be aware of is, your buyers are still out there. They still need what you have to offer, but what they need to hear from you as the business owner and the marketer has changed 100%. So I think to ignore that is kind of dangerous, to just keep using the same funnel templates and scripts that worked 5 years ago. It maybe isn't going to pan out in terms of how to adjust those strategically and bring things up to speed. It always comes down to your messaging. So I'll say strategically, it's not the time to panic and be like, oh, I need to change platforms or like webinars are dead, and all this stuff. I've seen every, strategy and tactic like die and come back from the dead at this point so many times. So I wouldn't look at like the actual tactics so much as the messaging and how you're communicating with your people. And like I said, that objection is top of mind for a lot of people. They've been burned before. Also pricing objections with the economy and everything that's happening politically in the States as well. So knowing your audience has those objections, what do they need to hear from you to feel safe investing? I think the worst thing you can do in this scenario is ignore what's happening and not address it. I know people sometimes hesitate to address objections because they're like, oh, I don't want to call attention to the fact that like the economy is in shambles and all these things. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is call it out, like address the elephant in the room, speak to that objection with empathy, get curious, have those conversations. Now is the time to really be like in the trenches with your audience, having those conversations in terms of like what is holding them back and how can you, ethically and in an empowering way help them through that because they need you now more than ever.
Yeah, that's so good. That's gold right there. So good. I love it. So, okay, I want to get into some of the fun, energetic, woo neuroscience because I know you have a background in that. And then when I was on your podcast, we geeked out on this stuff. So I'd love to hear oh my gosh, I love everything you've shared. And I want to like shift gears into maybe some of the internal energetic, the importance of that piece, right?
Yes.
Of like your energy and the thoughts that you're practicing and who you're being.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit to that when it comes to selling and to what you see work or how you prepare for sales calls or, creating the funnel on an internal level?
Yes. So this is so important. I wouldn't say it's like 100% of selling, but it's close. It's like 95% possibly and like I said, this was how I sort of transitioned from strategic consulting to coaching, because I realized no amount of strategy could make up for if you feel uncomfortable asking for the sale and that mindset and energy side. And so it's why in my program now, that stuff is in module 1. I'm like, we'll get to the tactics. Like I've got all the templates, I've got the scripts and the strategy for you to pick and choose from. It is like a buffet of sales strategies and options for you. But first, we need to talk about this real quick and make sure your mindset is on the right page before we get into all of that. So the first thing I will say is, thinking through, like we talked about earlier, what are those hesitancies or what resistance are you feeling from the get-go when you think about sales, right? So what are those thoughts running through your brain if you haven't done that work before? Or maybe you've done it for money, but you haven't done the sales side. Chances are they'll be similar. And just getting those thoughts like down on paper is the place to start to externalize that. I've heard you talk about in your podcast before, Jamie, the skill of metacognition, which I'm a huge fan of as well, and just kind of separating yourself from your thoughts and then interrogating that and being like, is this really true 100% of the time? Because we say these things like they're facts, right? Selling is sleazy. Business is hard. I'll never have consistent clients. And it feels so true. It feels so real, right? Like selling is hard and I'm not going to close the sale. And this is that. And you really have to interrogate them, like I said, and be like, but is that really true? Like 100% of the time? Am I catastrophizing here? Because we all do it,
Okay, so good. So metacognition, looking at your thoughts, being willing to challenge them. Do you have any favorite thoughts or perspectives when it comes to selling or like when someone's about to like, I want to make the pitch. I know they're the right client for me and I'd like to share it, but I'm scared. Like, is there something that you could offer for the person that's like in that moment that could be helpful as like a mantra or a reminder?
Yes. I have a few personal go-to favorites, but before I share them, I'll say the important thing is to pick something that really resonates with you, that like feels good in your body when you say it, because it's kind of like, money mantras. Like if you say it and it doesn't feel true, if you just tell yourself like, I'm a millionaire every day and you're broke, your brain is going to be like, absolutely not.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So it's the same thing like with sales. And so going back to like when you have that list of what are your current beliefs around sales and like looking at that. Okay. So you want to choose something that is either, the opposite of that, or at least kind of like a bridge that. So if you have a belief that's like, I suck at sales, you're not going to replace that probably right off the bat with something like, I am the best saleswoman on the planet. But you might have, a bridge that's saying something like, I'm learning how to sell. I am developing that skill. I'm learning how to make more money or how to be more consistent in my marketing or whatever it is that you're, struggling with. Some of my favorites are, especially right now, when a lot of people are stuck in fear with everything that's going on in the world and, in our marketplace and all of that. I really love the one that there are opportunities everywhere. And there always are. Like that's something I personally come back to. And it's so amazing when you tell yourself that, how true it becomes. And I really think that like seeing the world that way will be the difference between the people who kind of stick out this tough period and the people who totally shut down. Because if you keep telling yourself, that people aren't buying right now, the economy, no one wants this, no one's willing to pay this amount, that becomes true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's not like woo-woo and spiritual. There is neuroscience behind that. I'm happy to share more, but like that's literally how the brain works. And I'll never forget, one of my very first classes in university, it was, I think it was a psychobiology lecture, and the professor stood up there on day one and he said something that changed my life. He said, we don't get what we want, we get what we expect. And if you don't see that happening in your sales conversations, let me tell you, it is 1,000%. If you go into a call and you're like, no one's ever going to pay me this amount or no one's buying right now, people don't want this, that becomes true in so many different ways. And I'm, happy to go deeper on that, but let's start there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What is the neuroscience behind that? Why does it become true? And you can put it in very simple terms because,
Yeah.
I know you have that background, but what I just love for people to understand, why is it true that what you expect is what you get? Like that is typically, especially in sales. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The simple answer is that the human brain really loves being right. So whatever you consciously choose to tell yourself, or just the thoughts that you think repetitively, so for example, no one's buying right now, or, I suck at business, I suck at sales. If you tell yourself something like that, your brain, part of your brain that you're not consciously aware of, which is actually running the show and controlling, we're only consciously aware of around 5% of our thoughts and actions, and the rest is all unconscious or subconscious. So that subconscious part of your brain is going to go, got it, boss. I'm on it. Let me go collect all of the evidence for why you're terrible at business so that I can prove. It's like a lawyer going to find all of the evidence and building a case for why that belief is true. And it's just being reinforced over and over and over again. And there is, a part of our brain sort of acts as this filtering mechanism that is literally only letting through the information that is proving us right, and is active. And not only that, but it's actively deleting and distorting information that contradicts those beliefs. So that's why a lot of people struggle to recognize their own successes in business, because your brain is actively deleting that. If you're telling yourself, business is hard and whatnot, oh yeah, I did have all those wins that you completely forget about until your, friend or someone reminds you, that's what's happening there. It's literally gone from your brain.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. It's so interesting. I have to share a story because this happened for me with selling back. This was years ago whenever I was starting my coaching business. Well, maybe it was 2 years in when I was I finally need to learn the skill of selling. I probably should learn this, And so I dove in and decided I was going to learn to sell, and I was committed to it. But I went in with this thought, I'm bad at selling, right? And of course, that's why I was motivated to learn it, but I believed I was bad at selling. So I was approaching it from that place. And then every consult I did, there were so many no's. I think I had 40 no's before I got a yes. So I was dissecting them, and I was, what worked? What didn't work? What would I do differently? But it was through the lens of I suck at selling. And I remember just having that epiphany because I was also doing so much thought work and internal work. And I believe in manifestation and the power of our thoughts. And I caught it. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, if I believe I suck at selling, thoughts become things. I wonder if this is impacting things,
I
right?
Wonder if there's something going on here.
Yes.
Could it
so
be related?
Instead of dissecting every single consult and what worked and what I was what if I just started believing maybe I'm better at selling than I think? And I started looking for evidence. And then I was wait a minute. Why do I think I suck at selling? Because I worked at Nordstrom back in the day, and I was a pace setter. I actually sold a ton. I didn't even give myself credit for that because I was I was just good at makeup. I was personable. I was friendly. I was kind. I wasn't even trying. So I didn't give myself credit. But once I started believing, hey, maybe I'm better at selling than I think, and maybe I just do it in my own way. It's not this strategic way that someone else is telling me I have to follow. That's when things shifted, and I started converting at such a higher level. It was and I felt more me, more natural. I didn't feel like I was going and trying to sell. I was going and connecting with the person. It was just such a different energy from that one thought shift. So there's evidence and proof right there. So I love that so much.
Yeah. I will say if you go into your call with the mindset or the thought of I need to sell or I need to close this out, that's never going to serve you. So
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's going to backfire real hard. So the one I like to replace there is just, I'm here to help this other person. I'm here to serve them. I call my sales calls clarity calls because that's literally the goal, is for them to get clear and make a decision. I'm just there to help facilitate that. And you'd be amazed, like you said, that actually results in a much higher conversion rate. And the part that I find so fascinating about this is your expectations or beliefs. They're not just impacting how you show up, but they're also impacting the person on the other side of the call, right? So even if you're not aware of it. And that's what I find so interesting to geek out on the psychology aspect for a bit. There's this thing called the Rosenthal effect where, other people's expectations, you're imposing your expectations onto that other person. So if you believe they're not going to say yes or they're not going to pay this much, everything that you're doing, you could be saying and doing all the right things, but subconsciously your body language, your facial expression, even your tone of voice is conveying the message of do not buy from me. I don't believe in this. I am uncomfortable. Like all of that is happening. And so the person on the other side, even if they can't quite put their finger on why, they're like, oh, they're answering all my questions, but something feels off. You're imposing your limiting beliefs on that other person as well.
It's true. Oh my gosh. I know. I remember whenever I found that YouTube video on the Rosenthal effect, which I highly recommend y'all go watch. Oh my gosh. It's really the power of our thoughts on other people is absolutely fascinating. And it's also proof why coaching is so effective, because when you believe in someone or when you're selling and you actually believe in that person, they feel it and they can take that on for themselves when they might be lacking it. Or if you believe in their, abundance or their success, they can borrow that. It's amazing. So I love that you brought that up. So good. Oh my gosh, Megan, I've loved this conversation so much. And I want everyone to go follow your podcast and also how to, you just let everyone know how to find you, how to connect with you, how to work with you if they want to deepen their skill of selling.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, this has been such a blast. So if you want to come check out the podcast, it's called Blaze, as in Trailblaze, because we believe in doing life and business differently. Have a wonderful conversation with Jamie over there. It was so good. So definitely check out that episode. And then you can find me on my website at megansmyth.com. And I do have an Instagram account. I can't promise I am super active on there. We mostly just share the podcast at this point, but email is probably the best place to connect with me, work with me. All the information's on the website as well.
Love it. Yep. We're going to put everything in the show notes. So you'll have it down there. Oh my God. Thank you, Megan. I'm so glad this came together and we got to have this awesome conversation. So appreciate you. And yeah. All right, everyone. Happy selling.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope this episode is something that you'll be able to add to your manifestation toolbox to come back to when you need a little extra motivation. If you like what you've heard today and want to take it deeper, you've got to come check out my signature coaching program, the Money Manifestation Movement. It's the place where you'll not only learn manifestation, but you'll begin to live it alongside me and an amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs doing this work together. Head on over to jamieberman.com to learn more.